Well, hello, welcome. We are here with Darren Wilson. A lot of you know him from Finger of God, Father of Lights. Oh my gosh, and now you have a whole TV series.
show, Adventures with God.
Adventures with God that you can look at too. And you have a new book.
New book, God Adventures.
So you got to check that
yeah.
out. There's so many different resources, so just check that out online. But we wanted to talk to you about the power of story and what you do in actually, if a person's going to be involved in art, dance, writing, fashion, any creative field, story is the most important thing about how we create and what we do. And it's so linked to God's story. And that's what you do in all of your documentaries. And just share with us, like, how did you figure out the power of story, and what would be great for key creatives to understand when they're creating in any field?
Yeah, well, I think for me, I've always been I've always been about storytelling. When I was 13 years old, it was the first time I ever heard the Lord's voice. When I heard him tell me that I was going to be a writer. So, from 13 on, I was obsessed with figuring out how to tell like really, really good stories. And what I've discovered, kind of now that I've become successful at this kind of like iteration of storytelling that I do, is that stories, it's kind of like C.S. Lewis once said that good stories help the truth get past our watchful dragons.
Come on.
Because everybody has these we call them the watchful dragons, that like we have natural walls that are built up around us, especially when it comes to like new ideas or especially when it comes to belief. Because nobody wants to actually be converted, right? Nobody wants to like have to like change, because if you change how you like view God, you have to change your life. You have to change all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so what stories do, they allow you to come in and really kind of just kind of subvert those walls through entertainment. And so that's what I've tried to do. That's why, I'm not trying to make movies that are like messages.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make movies that are entertaining. Because if they're entertaining, you're going to watch them. And you may disagree even with what you're watching, but at least you're watching it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like Jesus with his parables. Like nobody understood what the parables meant, but he kind of just let the stories hit them and then germinate inside of them. And so for me, story is, it really, when you're dealing with the arts, if you're not telling a good story, you're not reaching people. Like you're not gonna affect any change.
And I think the issue that we have in the world of what we live in, as far as being politically correct with Christianese, with whatever, some things like that, one of the things that happens is that we downplay conflict. And we downplay the pain that people go through, and thinking that, in other words, we have to make it all nice, pretty, perfect. And it's really, it's kind of a turnoff, because people's lives are never perfect.
Right.
They're never together. And so part of the beauty of what you do is you put people into places within your storyline where there's a conflict, where there's something that needs to be resolved, and then it's up to the listener, the person who's watching it, to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with that? Right,
yeah. And I think there's a fearlessness that I think we need to get back into the arts, especially among the church, that it's kind of like what you're hitting on. For me, I don't really have any fear anymore from what God's going to ask me to do, because I've seen him move so many times.
Yeah.
And I also realized, I'm making a movie. So if you're making a movie, you kind of have to like put yourself out there for a little bit. So, kind of just the last thing I just wanted to mention too about your first story question. When you look at my first movie, Finger of God, it's not a very good looking movie, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. Technically, I didn't know what I was doing while I was making that film. But nobody really cares how it looks. I mean, I made the whole movie for $20,000, and it's like nobody cares how it looks, because the story is there. There's a story that draws you in. And I always just say there's two things that you have to worry about when you're making movies, and you have to make sure you tell a really good story. Two, make sure that you have really good audio, because the audience will forgive the audience will forgive bad video, because they're used to handheld, they're used to shaky, they can understand where you're at in the midst of things. But if you come in with bad audio, it screams that you're an amateur, and we're just so used to being able to at least hear things. And so anything that you can do to kind of like get away from the amateur status.
The
But
better.
audio is probably the biggest thing you have to worry about.
It's huge. And that's just a case in point, like to know your craft, to know what works, what doesn't work, but to have a place that brings people into questions, which is something that you also talk about, Darren, is that when you create something, are people intrigued to know why you created it? What is the rationale behind it? Because sometimes if we make things so obvious, then we get really bored quickly, and then it creates that thing of, will they really even watch what we do? It's just like Jesus. I mean, he spoke to them in parables, but he spoke to them in a way that intrigued them to find out why. And there's something about that we need to capture in whatever we create.
Yeah, I've always said that questions are the key to good storytelling. I mean, that if you have questions that people want answers to, they will stick with you.
Totally.
They will stick with your story to the very end. You look at any book you've ever read that's a page turner that you can't put down, right? It usually every chapter ends with a cliffhanger. Like, I've got to read the next chapter. I'm really tired, but I'm going to keep reading because I can't stop.
You can't put it down
because there's questions you have to have answered. And the problem with a lot of the Christian art that I see is we're more concerned with the answers than we are with the questions.
Yeah.
We just want to hurry up and get to the answer to the problem, when in reality that's not what people want. It's not what they need. They need somebody to identify with them, to have empathy with them for the questions that they are truly struggling with, the stuff that they're really going through. And when we come in and try to just give you like a pat answer, it's just Jesus will fix everything. No, he doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, I've got Jesus and I still have problems. You know what I mean? Like,
you're
Jesus,
kidding.
Jesus, he told us, you're going to have trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You come with me, it's not going to be the greatest life in the world. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, there's going to be a greatness to your life.
Yeah.
And you're finally going to have peace. But it doesn't mean everything just gets hunky-dory.
Well, and the belief, I think that's so important that you said that, because the belief system of what we believe in our theology, when we look at something and that's done in a Christian way, then it messes with the belief systems that are not really operating in the correct way, because everybody that looks at when everything goes out perfect goes, no, that hasn't happened with me before. Right. And they all go, I don't think you're really telling me the whole truth.
Right.
And so there's something that people want. They want messes. Yeah. Because messes mean that's my life. You're telling my story. You're telling my family story. That's just super important that we have that. But the other thing that's intriguing to me is that you chose a story that opened up people to who God was supernaturally, and no one else was telling that story that was culturally current. So you found something that was going to bring the culture into I would say a forward momentum into the fact that God really is that good that he would create gold teeth. I mean, seriously, like that he would go with a woman named Heidi Baker and create miracles. And the beauty of that was you were questioning if God really was that way and then that created, we understood your character, and then we followed you through. And that's why I think Finger of God was so amazing, because nobody was doing that. Right. Darren.
But I think it's important to note that it's not like I looked around and said, hey, nobody's doing this, I'm going to fill a need.
Right.
That's not where it came from. It came from a place of just, I was deeply questioning it myself. And I was just really curious, and I really wanted some answers. And I think we get in trouble when we try to like read the industry. We try to read what we think that they want, what will work, what won't work. You know, I have to deal with this now all the time. When it's like when I'm gonna like do a movie, like it's gonna be 2 years of my life. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. Like I can't like just be like, well, I think this is what the culture wants.
Right.
I've got to be like, what is the Lord telling me to do? Two, like what am I like passionate about that I'm willing to like lay myself out for the next, 2 years of my life.
And it's crazy because, like what we talked about when you were speaking in the School of Creativity about the power of the movie, about the boxer and how that didn't work out. It's like, it really isn't about knowing how to read. It's more read what's next. It's more along the lines of doing your passion and then letting go. Yeah. And with Finger of God, I think the great thing about that is that you actually hit a need that you might not have been aware of that was in your heart. Right. That tapped into so many other people's hearts. Yeah. that it's crazy. It's like, it's crazy what God can do that we don't even know he's going to do.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of creativity, is like, if you do stuff with honesty and with what God has intended it for, then he's going to use it in whatever timing, whenever, to transform people.
Yeah, and it goes beyond even, I think, just, what we're creating. I mean, you just look at the, I just spoke today at your creativity conference, and I speak about something that I just feel like I just really want to talk about.
Totally.
I feel like the Lord wants me to talk about it, and I'm thinking 30 people are going to respond.
You got to watch it.
The whole place comes forward.
He spoke about fear of failure and at the session today, 10 a.m. this morning on May 19th, and almost everybody stood up, because this is an epidemic. I mean, people don't really create because they're so afraid of failure.
Yeah.
And there's so many missed, I believe God has so many missed opportunities for people, just waiting for them to take it, that he's downloaded to them. But fear keeps them from ever moving forward.
But to your point, I had no clue that was that so many people were struggling with it. I thought this was for maybe 30.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you see and then you start, that's when it's fun. When you're partnering with the Lord and what you do, that's when it's fun, because what you think, okay, God, I'll do this because you're asking me to, but I don't know if this is going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah.
But he knows what's going on in the hearts, and he knows what people need. And so that's why I always say he's the best director. He's the best producer. He's the one you want to partner with, because he knows what's up. So I always say,
totally
go with him.
does.
Go with him.
He does. He totally does. Darren, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that need to know how you faced the fear of failure, and how you moved into a place of moving out of that and into the presence.
Well, for me, it's really comes down to two things. One, I failed a ton, so there wasn't anything really to be afraid of, because I got really used to it. So I failed a lot before I got successful. The question is more about, now that I am successful, how do I face it? Because now failures are much more expensive, and they can be much more crippling. And so, but for me, I was raised in the home of an artist. My dad is an artist, and so this was always just part of life.
Oh, totally.
To me, it was this is what artists do. If you're a true artist, you're not gonna you're gonna fail. Not everything you create is gonna work. And so for me, it's really been about being, just embracing kind of being prolific, and just never stopping creating. Because if I were to just kind of create something and then just let it go out and just squeeze it till it's dry, and then now that's where it becomes devastating if I fail.
Totally.
But I'm a creator, so I have to keep making things. But there's nothing. Okay, so if you shoot and you miss,
don't stop.
What's the big deal? Everybody does. Just make sure you learn something from it. That's really what it boils down to. If you don't learn, then you're an idiot. You know what I mean? And you're going to keep failing.
I think the issue too, Darren, what you're talking about is so important, because it's more, when you fail, it's something that's outside of you. But when you have the fear of failure, it's a thing of shame, and you really do feel like, I can't do that because I'm a failure. And I think that's the key, that
that's
a lot of people, they live in that place where they actually judge their own worth based upon whether or not they make that movie, they get that job in acting, they get their book signed, whatever. And God doesn't feel that way, and he doesn't look at it that way. And that's where I think a lot of Christians and people have felt that means I'm bad, I'm not whatever. And instead of saying, no, I just didn't get it right. I mean, how many times did Edison fail before he found out about the light bulb? I mean, we could tell story after story of no one ever gets it right. There's always people that try until they perfect. It's huge.
Yeah, if you're finding any part of your identity in what you do, you're in trouble. You're going to be in big trouble, and because as soon as you fail, you're going to be devastated.
That's right.
When I first found success with Finger of God, I very much was, and I embraced it. For a season, I was the Finger of God guy. That's who I was, and and it was and I couldn't do certain things because I was the Finger of God guy. And, my wife would, when we'd have fights, she's like, "What? Well, you're the Finger of God guy. What if your fans could see you acting like this?" And she, so we have all this stuff, and then the Lord brought me through a season
good.
just through a wilderness season of just killing that in me.
Come on.
You know, of like of realizing like if that's where my identity is, then if it falls apart, then I'm gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
And so like where I'm at now, it's like I mean, yeah, I make movies. That's what I do for a living, but that's not who I am.
Totally.
You know, I'm God's son.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I'm a dad and I'm a husband, and that's what I am. You know what I mean? And I have a really cool job, but it's what I do. It's not who I am.
It's almost like, I think one of the things I want to talk about is there is a journey in every artist. There's a journey of letting go of what you think it should be, letting go of like the fact that you don't know as much as you really would like everybody to think you know. There's the journey of trying to get the best people involved in your project because you want it to really grow. There's so many different, it's family juggling, there's so many different things that an artist has to face. But this thing inside of an artist that I'm just intrigued on is the fact that it really is about a curiousness that God's given you to create something that you know is going to change people. And I think that's the key. It's like that I've found in my own life that I wanted you to talk about. It's like, what is this thing inside that God's given mankind to produce beauty and produce life and produce hope that goes way beyond what a person can just be, but they have to reproduce something that tells their own story in a way, but in a way that really brings in the kingdom.
Yeah, I think it's the spark of God's spirit inside of us, isn't it? I mean, when he creates the world, he creates the universe, he creates it in such a way that it reveals who he is.
And it never changes. There's always more to find out.
There's always more to find out. It reproduces itself. There's all kinds of things that we can learn from his creation. But he even says, like, nobody has an excuse.
That's
because
right.
if you've seen my creation, if you've seen what I've made, you've seen me.
Totally.
Right? And I think that's where it comes from for us as creatives. It's like we want the world to see it because I think we so desperately want to be known ourselves.
Yeah.
We want the world to experience how we see the world, like for me, I can just speak to myself. When I make a movie, I'm making a movie for me. I'm not making it for you. I'm making a movie that I want to see.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I can just be true and honest to who I am and the questions that I have and the struggles that I have, that like I guarantee you there's other people out there who think like me, and but I want the world to see and to experience some semblance of how I view God, of how I wrestle with him, of how I talk to him. Because I think it all comes down to connection. We want to connect with people in the same way God wants to connect with us.
Totally. It's crazy. This is amazing. I feel like, Darren, there's a wealth that there's people that you've been with from all over the world that have really gone after the heart of God. What is a common denominator in the stories that you have found in the people's lives that you go, wow, this is a thread that seems to continue to poke itself up about why are these people so radically in love with Jesus?
Because they're friends with him.
It's awesome.
I think when you get into trouble or you get burnout or whatever it is, you're not doing something. It's when you stop doing something out of friendship and you start doing something out of duty. You start doing something out of for the ministry. Start doing something because it's your job. As soon as you step out of friendship, that's when it's all about to fall apart, because then you're in religion territory, which is no good for anybody.
No.
Right? So instead, it has to be born out of relationship. But even that's kind of a buzzword that gets thrown around too much. To me, it really is friendship, and friendship with friendship comes trust. And the people who really impress me are the people who walk in a deep, deep, deep trust in who God is and who he will be, but also that they've proven themselves to God that they too can be trustworthy. They can be trustworthy for him. And that's where the friendship takes place. It's like, I trust you, you trust me, let's go change the world.
Wow.
So that's, to me, that's always been the common denominator that I see all across the board.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I love it because unless you would have really studied these people, we would not know it. Like, I was just watching a TED Talks with this one professor who was in Harvard, and he had studied for 75 years the longevity of, I think, 750 men, and 70 were still alive. They were in their 90s. But they were studying well-being and happiness. And the one thing that they said, by far, wasn't making money. It wasn't success. This was a secular, talk show. The one thing was relationships, which is so key to what we're talking about today. It's the relationships with God, with others. It's the common denominator is how intimate and how much of a friend do you trust God in every arena, which is what Jesus said, depart from me, I never knew you.
Yes.
It's that huge thing that is so powerful.
Right. He's not saying I never knew of you.
Yeah.
He's saying I didn't know who you actually were.
It's crazy. I just, gosh, I would love for you just to impart to the people that are watching whatever God shows you, but impart to them what you feel they need to go to the next level in their craft.
I would love to. Well, Father, I just pray right now for everybody who's watching this. And God, I just speak a deep desire for friendship with you.
Yeah.
God, I ask that whatever dreams they have, whatever things that they think they want to accomplish, whatever things that you've put in their hearts, God, that they will take a vast backseat to a friendship, a true, trusting friendship with you. And that out of that friendship, out of that relationship, out of that place of unity with you, God, that they will then be able to do whatever it is that you want them to do, and do whatever you want to do with them, and that it'll be a true partnership. So, Father, I just speak friendship and trust and courage to take that step into trusting you in everything they do, especially their creative lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, now tell us about your series one more time.
Okay, Adventures with God. It's out right now. Super excited about it. It's 20 episodes, half hour each. So it's a big undertaking. But look back kind of over the last 10 years of everything that I've filmed.
Check it out.
And new adventures, old adventures. There's all kinds of good stuff. If you've seen nothing, if you've seen everything, you're going to get something out of it. So I'm really excited about it.
And check out his book too. And that's on Amazon everywhere.
And it's on Amazon everywhere. Yeah, everything's on Amazon. Everything's on our website. So
just look up Darren Wilson wherever you go. Find out what he's doing, because he's always up to something new. I love it. Thanks for joining us, and Darren, thank you for all the wisdom that you have.
Thanks for having me.